South Korean President Yoon departed today for Indonesia, where the ASEAN summit is taking place, to be followed by a trip to India for a G20 summit. On his agenda, stepping up multilateral cooperation with the region. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly plans to travel to Russia this month to discuss weapons trade with President Vladimir Putin. Russia's defense chief says Moscow is also discussing holding joint exercises with Pyongyang. Consumer price growth at home in August jumped back to over 3% in 3 months. Extreme weather has pushed up the cost of agricultural products, while global oil prices remain high. It's September 5th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. President Yoon left for Indonesia today, where the ASEAN summit is taking place, followed by his trip to India for a G20 summit. On his agenda, stepping up cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, while addressing North Korea's nuclear and missile aggression. Our presidential office correspondent Woo Soo-young starts us off.
President Yoon embarks on a diplomatic super week, travelling to Indonesia and India to attend key multilateral summits and at least 14 bilateral meetings with other world leaders. Yoon's first stop is Jakarta, where some 27 heads of government and international organisations are convening for the 3-day meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. After a dinner with Korean expats on Tuesday, the president will hold a bilateral dialogue with the 10-member bloc the following morning. He will build on the Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, which he presented last November in Cambodia, as a key part of South Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy that strives for freedom, peace and prosperity in the region.
President Yoon will attend the ASEAN-related summit in person for the second straight year. Our intention to pursue the Korean-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative in earnest will be clear, as we announce plans to strengthen cooperation in cyber and maritime security and digital innovation in particular.
Yoon will also attend the ASEAN +3 meeting, joined by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Chinese Premier Li Qiang. As the rotating chair of the Northeast Asian trio, Yoon plans to address how to jointly fulfill the vision of the East Asian community through cooperation. Then, zooming on security issues on Thursday at the East Asia Summit, the president will ask world leaders for a strong response to North Korea's missile provocations and ongoing nuclear program by curbing its illegal financing schemes such as cryptocurrency stealing. Also, as part of his official visit to Indonesia, Yoon will hold a bilateral summit with his counterpart Joko Widodo at the presidential palace on Friday. A roundtable of major Korean and Indonesian corporate leaders will also take place during his time in Jakarta.
At this event, President Yoon plans to evaluate the achievements of economic cooperation with Indonesia so far and present cooperation plans for the next 50 years, including strengthening supply chains, responding to global agendas, and exchange of future generations.
With his itinerary extending to the G20 conference in New Delhi, Yoon will engage in further summitry on the sidelines of both multilateral meetings, with 14 bilaterals confirmed, including with India, and possibly 6 more, according to the top office. Marking the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations with both Indonesia and India this year, a presidential official said Monday that Seoul sees great potential for synergy in aligning their national interests amid growing geopolitical and ideological tensions in the region. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
This year, South Korea marks its 50 years of diplomatic ties with Indonesia and India, the hosts of the ASEAN and G20 summits. Now, these two countries have emerged as significant economic partners for Seoul. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young tells us what to expect.
Indonesia and India, where President Yoon is traveling to for the ASEAN and G20 summits, have emerged as prominent markets amid the rapidly changing global economic landscape. According to the Korea International Trade Association, although the share of South Korea's exports to the two countries is not large, shipments to India rose by more than 20% year-on-year in 2022, while those to Indonesia recorded an increase of 18.6%. India, with a population of over 1.4 billion as of this year, is considered an attractive place for investment and as a production base. In particular, the Make in India initiative by the Indian government, which aims to make the country a manufacturing hub, has led global automotive companies to establish production facilities there. According to South Korea's trade investment promotion agency KOTRA, India is the world's fourth largest global manufacturing hub for vehicles. Both Hyundai Motor and Kia have successfully entered the Indian market through local investments. In 2021, in terms of sales volume in India's passenger car market, Hyundai ranked second with a share of 17%, while Kia came in fourth. Indonesia, on the other hand, is emerging as an economic partner in terms of supply chains and economic security, especially in the electric vehicle and battery sectors. The government and state-owned firms are working on building supply chains, starting with the mining of nickel, a key material for EV batteries, to the production and distribution of batteries. With India and Indonesia both marking their 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties with South Korea this year, economic cooperation is expected to expand in various areas. KOTRA sees EVs and renewable energy as promising areas of demand for both Seoul and New Delhi. The Indian content market, which is expected to reach $31 billion by next year, is also a field that South Korea can focus on. With Indonesia, electric vehicles, battery supply chains, as well as its smart city projects are areas that South Korea can look forward to for further cooperation. 신하영, Arirang News.
As Russia seeks more weaponry for its war in Ukraine, a U.S. media report says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is planning to travel to Russia this month for weapons talks. Eyes are now on whether Kim and Putin will be able to meet for the first time in 4 years and what impact this will have on the region. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has more.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may travel to Russia as early as next week to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss the possibility of supplying Russia with more weaponry and other military cooperation. Citing American and allied officials, the New York Times reported Monday local time that Kim would likely travel from Pyongyang, probably by armored train, to Vladivostok, where he would meet with Putin. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson also confirmed Monday that Kim is expected to visit Russia to discuss arms sale with Putin, and that the visit is widely anticipated to take place this month. She added that Kim expects leader-level diplomatic engagement with Russia, following Moscow's attempt to convince Pyongyang to sell artillery ammunition for its war in Ukraine. U.S. officials said in return, Kim would ask Russia to provide North Korea with advanced technology for satellites and nuclear-powered submarines. It would be the first foreign diplomatic activity for the North Korean leader in 4 years. Kim last met Putin in April 2019, then met China's Xi Jinping 2 months later, in June. Since January 2020, the North isolated itself for 3 years during the COVID-19 pandemic. One expert noted that this comes after the historic summit last month between the leaders of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan at Camp David, where the three countries agreed to strengthen security ties.
Overall, I think they will strengthen the three-way relationship between North Korea, China, and Russia. South Korea, the US, and Japan have already agreed to build a new trilateral security framework. So this is going to make the conflict between the liberalism bloc and totalitarianism bloc more obvious.
As for the reason why the U.S. government confirmed details of Kim's possible visit to Russia, he said it's probably to raise awareness, to call on the international community for stronger cooperation, in order to block illegal arms trade between Pyongyang and Moscow. The New York Times also said U.S. officials have, at other times since the war broke out in Ukraine, released declassified intelligence to try to dissuade North Korea, China, and other countries from supplying Russia with weapons. It also reported that officials say White House warnings about planned transfers of North Korean artillery shells stopped previous cooperation between North Korea and Russia. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
While attention is on Kim's potential trip to Russia, there are also signs that North Korea, Russia, and China may conduct combined military drills for the first time, apparently against joint drills by South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung with more.
Growing speculation that North Korea, Russia, and China may conduct their first ever joint military exercises is bound to spark concern in the international community. On Monday, Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu revealed that Moscow is considering joint naval exercises with Pyongyang and Beijing. On the same day, South Korea's National Intelligence Service reportedly confirmed that Russia formally proposed a joint drill with China during Shoigu's visit to North Korea in late July.
There was an answer from the National Intelligence Service saying that Russian Defense Minister Shoigu likely proposed a three-way exercise between North Korea, China, and Russia when he met with Kim Jong-un.
Regarding the potential drills, Seoul's defense ministry said Tuesday that it will pay close attention.
Our military will keep a close eye on the matter, including movements related to the North Korean military.
Speaking to a Russian news agency last week, Moscow's ambassador to North Korea reportedly raised the need for trilateral joint drills between Pyongyang, Moscow, and Beijing. The ambassador said military drills would be an appropriate response in light of constant trilateral exercises by the U.S. and its allies. South Korea and the U.S. last week wrapped up their Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise, which is often strongly denounced by North Korea. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
Consumer price growth in Korea last month jumped back to over 3% in 3 months. Extreme weather has pushed up the cost of food items while global oil prices remain high. Our An Sung-jin explains.
Amid rising fruit prices due to extreme heat and rain, consumer prices in South Korea in August saw their biggest hike since April. According to Statistics Korea on Tuesday, the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, saw a 3.4% increase in August, compared to the previous year. That's the largest on-year increase since April. It is also a 1.1 percentage point increase on July's figure, making it the largest on-month increase since September 2000. The rise in food prices has been the biggest contributor to inflation. Fruit prices in particular were up by 13.1% on-year, which was the biggest rise since January 2022.
The Consumer Price Index, excluding volatile categories such as food and energy that include petroleum and agricultural products which can rise due to temporary factors, saw the same on-year increase of 3.3%.
The same official added that the fact that core inflation measured by excluding volatile categories was at the same level as last month indicates that a change in consumer prices in August was due to temporary factors rather than a shift in the overall price trend. However, one expert noted that caution is needed.
Although it is a relief that the core inflation isn't expected to increase more, it's different from consumer prices as a rise in prices for agricultural and petroleum products is influential to consumers, like how the end of fuel tax cut can sway prices in a few months.
It seems that the government will have to balance tax revenues and consumer sentiment.
The overall slowdown in prices is being maintained, and as temporary factors ease, prices are expected to stabilize again from October onwards. The government will remain extremely alert to stabilize prices.
This aligns with government measures as it announced its efforts to ensure a lower price of key Chuseok food items for consumers while providing subsidies. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The South Korean economy managed to keep up in the second quarter, only to expand 0.6% as imports fell greater than exports. Our Park Gon-woo has the details.
South Korea saw slight economic growth in the second quarter of 2023, despite an overall decrease in exports and imports. Preliminary data revealed by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday showed that real gross domestic product increased 0.6% in the second quarter compared to quarter one. That figure was identical to the bank's forecast in July. Despite export increases for chips and automobiles in the April to June period, total exports fell 0.9% on quarter, while imports were down 3.7%, mainly due to a decrease in shipments of oil and gas. Private consumption, government consumption, and investments all shrank in the second quarter, while investment in facilities, including investment in machinery, was the only category that saw growth. South Korea had seen positive on-quarter growth for 9 consecutive quarters, beginning in the third quarter of 2020. That is until the country slipped into negative growth in the last quarter of 2022. Growth was back in positive territory in quarter 1 of 2023, on the back of a small rise in private consumption.
The economic growth is projected to continue improving as consumption will rise, and sluggish exports will ease in the future as well.
The official also added that uncertain factors such as China's slower-than-expected recovery and concerns of the U.S.'s additional tightening policies still remain. And according to the central bank, South Korea's real gross national income fell 0.7% on quarter in the second quarter, which was mainly attributed to worsened terms of trade. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The Ministry of Education has taken a step back in its handling of teachers who took part in Monday's nationwide protest rallies. Education Minister Lee Ju-ho said Tuesday that teachers who took part in the rallies would not be punished by the Education Authority. He added that the majority of the teachers took days off from their schools to mourn the death of colleagues. The ministry had previously ordered teachers to remain in schools, saying those taking part would be punished. The organizers said over 120,000 teachers took part in Monday's protests. They mourned and commemorated fellow teachers who had taken their own lives and demanded law changes to improve teachers' rights. Starting today, lawmakers at the National Assembly are quizzing government officials on a range of issues that'll last until Friday. It's one of the major events scheduled for the final regular session of South Korea's 21st National Assembly. On day one, it was all about political issues. We take a closer look into what's in store during this final assembly with our political correspondent, Lee Si-hoo. Thanks for coming on, Si-hoo.
Hi, Jung-min.
Hi. And I hear this 100-day session holds exceptional significance for the lawmakers. Why is that?
Well, the next 3 months are crucial in that they are the Parliament's last chance to pass some of its most pending bills, sort out any unfinished business, and make a lasting enough impression to ultimately secure seats at the general election. Right now, the Parliament has a minority ruling, majority opposition status. The ruling People Power Party holds approximately 37% of seats, while the main opposition Democratic Party holds 56. This has led to fierce clashes and standoffs during the legislative process, where the opposition would use their majority to pass bills that would later be vetoed by the president. For example, the revisions to the Grain Management Act and the Nursing Act. For the ruling party, the election is an opportunity to create the momentum and support that the Yoon administration needs to carry out its national tasks. For the opposition, it's a chance to maintain their voice.
Right. And the rival parties are vowing to put people's livelihoods first and foremost. Tell us more about that.
Yes, both the ruling and opposition parties said they will prioritize pushing bills related to people's livelihoods and the economy. Take a listen.
The PPP will focus on reviving the economy and taking care of people's livelihoods. We will thoroughly deny false agitations, prevent financial leaks, and normalize the national finance.
As the party that overcame the currency crisis and propped up the venture economy, we will restore the public economy through our 3 policies focusing on domestic consumption, investment, and growth.
The PPP will also push for reforms in labor, education, and pensions. Some of its legislative goals include supporting the launch of the Korea Aerospace Administration and allowing anonymous births to protect the mother and the infant. It's also pushing to postpone the enactment of the Fatal Industrial Accidents Punishments Act for small businesses. The act punishes business owners for fatal accidents occurring at their workplace. Now, the DP recently announced 7 legislative goals on top of countermeasures regarding Japan's release of the Fukushima wastewater. The party aims to push bills protecting workers working in extreme heat, as well as protecting teachers from being falsely accused of child abuse. It's also pushing for bills to help small and medium-sized businesses by facilitating investment.
A lot to work on. And Si-hoo, on top of that, what other events are we expecting?
Well, as you mentioned earlier today, starting today, the lawmakers are quizzing the government officials during the parliamentary Q&A sessions. Every day, about 12 different lawmakers are going to question the government on topics such as politics, diplomacy, security, the economy, education, and society. Some of the expected topics to come up are Japan's release of wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant, teachers' rights, and response measures to violent crimes. Now, in October, the annual parliamentary inspection of the government will take place. Each parliamentary committee will conduct inspections in their respective fields of expertise. Now, the rival parties will also discuss and review the budget proposal submitted by the government.
And with about 7 months remaining until the general elections, what can you tell us more about the parliament's goal to complete and achieve electoral reform?
Yes, so Speaker Kim Jin-pyo said that all reforms to the electoral system must be completed by the end of this month. He said that way we can ensure people's political rights and offer a fair chance at competition for new politicians. The lawmakers are also discussing measures to possibly combine electoral districts in new ways rather than the traditional boundaries drawn by provinces and regions.
This way, our politics is making a stepping stone to overcome regionalism, a deep-seated problem in our society.
Speaker Kim is also pushing for a constitutional amendment that will decrease political clashes and divisions and instead facilitate conversations and compromises.
If the starting line of decentralization and cooperation is electoral reform, the finish line is a constitutional amendment. Now that the rival parties have taken the first steps of conversation and compromise, let's gather our strengths to achieve agreement on constitutional amendment.
Beginning this week, the Parliament's Advisory Committee for Constitutional Amendment and Political Policies is holding public hearings to find people's opinions on ways to improve our political system.
All right, we will have to keep an eye on how it all unfolds. Thanks for that, Shihu.
Thank you.
Unseasonably warm temperatures will continue for the next few days. Highs will stay near 31 degrees Celsius until Thursday. With high moisture levels in the air, temperatures will feel a couple degrees higher than the actual readings. But tropical nights will subside with lows dropping below 25 degrees. Heat wave alerts have been expanded to further parts of inland regions. Along with Chungcheongdo provinces and southern regions, parts of the Seoul metropolitan area are under heat wave advisories. Chances are high that they will stay in place for most regions tomorrow. For Gangwon-do province, where cold easterly winds are blowing, longer spells of showers are expected. For eastern Gangwon-do province, 5 to 10 millimeters are in the forecast. For Jeollado province, scattered outbreaks of rainfall of 5 to 40 millimeters are expected. Under sunny skies, Seoul and Busan will be starting off at 23 degrees. Daytime highs will be in the similar range tomorrow. Seoul will get up to 31 degrees, Gwangju 28, Gyeongju will be topping out at 28 degrees. And clear skies are expected for the time being with wide temperature gaps. For the remainder of the week, highs will hover around 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.